this week's Innovations. I'm your host, Phil McKinney. We are back here in the studio in Colorado. I'm actually getting ready to head out on a little bit of travel. So I'll be doing some shows from the road. We actually will be playing some other shows that I'm actually doing recordings for some guests, because Sunday can sometimes be a little more difficult. So we are actually heading to Florida. If you've listened to a show a couple of weeks ago, with regards to my grandson and his medical condition, we are going there to spend a little bit of time, but I will be doing the show from Colorado. Now, last week's show, we had on a young innovator, 18 years old, who had developed a medical device to help people return motion to their hands and their bodies after they've had a stroke. This week, we are actually going even younger on the innovators list. In this case, we have invited a young guest, Bishop Curry, to the show. So Bishop, how are you doing? Can you hear me okay? I know you're down in Dallas. I appreciate you and your family taking the time out of your schedule on a Sunday to join us.
Yeah, I can hear fine.
Good, good. So Bishop got introduced to us. You know, our show, as you know, we've been covering a lot of young innovators, those that probably are at the age category that would shock a lot of us as to being able to doing some really new and interesting things. So someone reached out to us, introduced us to Bishop and his family, and we heard about his story and thought we'd use the platform of the radio show, one, to highlight the need for this solution, but also to talk about young innovators and the fact that there really isn't an age category. It isn't about you got to be in college or you have to be out in the work world or you have to have lots of money, but that you can actually innovate wherever you're at currently at the moment. So Bishop, tell us a little bit about yourself. You live in Dallas with your family. Talk about your family a little bit.
So my family is my mom works with special needs. She's also a volleyball coach. My dad works for Toyota. And my brother has his own company. We just call it Kid Ladder. And my sister is just being the daughter of the family.
And how old is your brother?
He is 9.
So
I think.
So you've innovated your solution, and your brother at 9 has this thing called Kid Ladder. That's pretty amazing. So let's talk a little bit about the motivation for this invention that you came up with. So as I understand it, you saw, read, or heard about this tragic accident with a young infant. Tell us a little bit about that story.
Well, we're all watching the news, and then a baby dies in a hot car, and her name was Fern. And I thought this shouldn't happen to anybody, so I came up, I took a pencil and a pen, and then I drew up the first model, which was a literal car seat, and that's basically how it happened.
And so in this case, you heard about the story of Fern, 6 months old. She dies in a car after she's been left in the car from the heat. And I guess her family lives fairly close to you. So in this case, Dallas, Texas. I was just in Dallas, in fact, earlier this week for some meetings, and it was unbelievably hot there. So you took it on kind of as a personal challenge to come up with a solution that kids should not die from being left in the automobiles or being forgotten in the car. So tell us a little bit about your, the early ideas that you came up with.
Well, the earlier ideas, you mean the side Oasis or the first models of it?
Yeah, well, how you got everything from the time you saw the TV, the reporting of the child, unfortunately dying, all the way through the process. Share all the ideas you came up with, what worked, what didn't work, and what you learned.
So our first our first model, we took like my sister's old car seat, and I tried to like organize where everything went, which was a fail. Then our next idea, I tried to consider melting
Hold on.
plastic.
What failed on that? What were you trying to do?
I was trying to like organize everything, but everything kept falling off. So I had to think of like a new design that was smaller and it's less complicated. So like our second model was let me think. Oh yeah, our second model was actually like this L-shaped thing, and we used acetone and we melted it with styrofoam, and we were doing like making plastic out of both of those, because you know the science experiment when you put like styrofoam and acetone and it's just like sinks.
Yep.
And it leaves like a plastic at the bottom. We tried to use that, but all the plastic spilled out and it would never dry. So like I honestly considered melting like plastic silverware. That would have worked way better.
And so
I
you were
think.
trying to melt the plastic for what? To create a very specific shape?
No. We tried because like our shape was not very specific at all. It was just a block.
Yep.
Which was like, I don't know what we were gonna do with it, but we were probably gonna do like news shoot. But then my fourth model in that that I have now and sometimes use to bring on TV is a 3D printed model. I use Tinkercad to 3D print it, and like it's basically like the exact model of what it looks like.
So what does this device do? What is it you're trying to, how does this prevent the child from being forgotten or left in the car?
So it has a sensor at the bottom, and it senses like you know how like a heat sensor camera?
Mm-hmm.
It's like that, and you know where it really senses like actual people,
Mm-hmm.
like all the body parts and everything. It's gonna sense that, and then it's gonna, when it realizes it's a baby and like not a purse, because sometimes people throw like grocery bags or purses in the baby car seat.
Yep.
And when it realizes it's not a purse or a bag, it starts blowing cold air, and it tries to keep it at a specific temperature.
Yep.
And so I'm not really supposed to go deep in the I'm not supposed to really go deep into details because I don't really want it to get stolen as like an idea. So I'm gonna be careful about that.
Yeah. I mean, everybody's got to make sure that you get your and I in your write-up, I know that you've filed your patents on your ideas already.
Mm-hmm.
So you got that. You got at least that protection. So, but basically, what you've designed is some way to actually sense that there's a real baby in the car. So,
Yes.
therefore, then what? Does it call the parents or something, or put on an alarm?
There's a detector that calls the parents and the police, which is going to be like kind of complicated. So we got to get like all the police stations to cooperate and everything.
Yeah. So therefore, then so if someone does forget it, the parents are reminded, hey, I think you've got a child in the car. And then if it starts to get too warm, then it starts, call the police or other people in order to get more action to get the baby, out of the car.
Yeah.
So how have you tested this device so far? Have you
Well,
put it in the cars and tried it out?
we haven't. We are testing like all the mechanics part of it, how the fan works, how the cooling system, and stuff. We can't really get the sensor quite right, but that's okay because we aren't using the models we're using. The manufacturers can provide everything we need for the for everything we need for the Oasis. So it's gonna have everything, not to alarm anybody.
Perfect. So we're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, we'll continue on our conversation with Bishop Murray, talking about his work and his innovation and the motivation he had in trying to solve a national problem, particularly in the summertime, where children accidentally get left in the car and the car overheats and it has catastrophic results. So when we come back, we're going to pick up this conversation with Bishop and find out more about kind of the current status and what his plans are for his innovation. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. You're listening to Killer Innovations on the BizTalk Radio Network. Welcome back to Killer Innovations. I'm your host, Phil Mckinney. Before we jump back into this segment of the show, just need to do a quick shout out to one of our sponsors, which is Zoom. Zoom is what allows us to bring our guests in for the interviews that are remote. We also use Zoom to coordinate all of the activities, scheduling and promoting of guests. And then also I use Zoom in my day job where I'm a CEO and I have my team members scattered out all over the world. Zoom has basically the best audio, the best video, and the best collaboration technology, and works everywhere. I've done Zoom calls from Rwanda, Africa, to Beijing, China, to Auckland, New Zealand, and of course, everywhere in the United States that I travel to. So check it out. Zoom is made available a free account, so go to killerinnovations.com/Zoom. You can get your free account. It allows you to collaborate with up to 50, that's right, 50 people. And check that out. Use this tool. It's basically the next generation of all of the old previous tools that are out there. And they recently just announced that it now works with all of the old Polycom rooms and all the Cisco telepresence rooms. So even if you have all of those previous systems, Zoom works with them. So check it out. It will definitely kick up the productivity of you and your team and your organization. So hop on over, killerinnovations.com/Zoom, and check it out. And if you do go forward and use Zoom, let them know where you heard about it here on the Killer Innovation Show. Let's have a conversation with Bishop here. We're coming back into the second segment. So Bishop, share with us a little bit about the process. It sounds like you went through a bunch of different prototypes. What did you learn through the whole process of going through that prototyping process?
First, we did a GoFundMe to get up to $20,000, and so we got $40,000, which is twice, $2,000, $20,000 over our goal. So yay, America, for that. And also, so we gave that $20,000 to this dude who is a lawyer, and he's gonna help us. He used that money for the Oasis and basically the process of going to the National Patent Office, which he did, except it's gonna be here next year. That's when it's gonna be fully patented off the back, because they're doing, we hope so, because they're doing so much research, because they're constantly on the computers is there anything that does this?
Right.
And I'm really hoping there isn't, because sometimes, because I had a nightmare that this one guy posted this picture of that from nobody even knows him, and he's from absolutely just came out of the random, and I'd be
So what Bishop is talking about is the U.S. Patent Office requires, as a term that they require for innovation, called uniqueness. It has to be unique. It can't be something that's already in the marketplace, already shipping, or already patented. If it's already out there, it's classified as what we call prior art. So you have to, and part of the patenting process is they go through and scour everything out there, trying to make sure that the approach that they're doing is unique. And I'll tell you, Bishop, the concern you have about having someone who randomly comes out of left field with a similar idea is something that everybody that's ever invented has. But it's actually more rare than you think. It's not as common. If you come up with something totally novel in your own head, in your own approach, the odds are actually pretty high that you can get a patent, if it's not an obvious thing. But then you can get a patent on it. But everybody worries about it. It's one of the things that I get a lot of phone calls from people about, is my idea unique enough? Will it get a patent? Will a patent be issued? And it takes longer than you think. It takes a lot longer than you think. So now that you've got the patent work done, you've done the 3D printing in order to get some basic work done. What's next on the horizon for you? Where do you go next? Obviously
Well,
the patent, but are you talking to companies about doing something with this technology?
well, I think we're going to go to like some manufacturers that'll basically build a factory, I think, or have like those like self-factory machines that link together, and there's like one arm that puts things together and screws them in, which are really cool and really useful for like things like this size. It's not like they can't build like cars because they aren't that big. It's like as big as like a claw machine.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
so you're actually then looking to actually start building up some product. You got to get it out there and get it tested, make sure it works. And then are you planning on then selling it to people like on Amazon, or is that kind of your model?
I want to I don't really care where it gets sold as long as it gets out.
Okay. Okay.
So like I also found like a gift, like so literally like with any problem I just put things together and I solved it because somebody asked me a question about the drunk driving and then I told them an idea for it, except they didn't quite get what I was saying, even though I told them like if you put all this together you'll get your solution. So if like literally anybody asked me how to build something that's not too like for like a like not too like complicated or like a simple world problem like heat stroke, well it's not really simple but
So
simple normal.
you're actually helping others then with their ideas right now.
Mhm. because
Interesting.
somebody because somebody told me like for like something that'll help drunk drivers in case if it was going to be like this Google Map thing. Well, it's not an app, it's something that you attach to your car, and like when you go somewhere it'll locate like all like the places that have like that sell like high alcoholics,
Hmm.
and then that thing will like when you come back near the car it's gonna be like it's gonna call a cab and it's gonna be like keeping you there until like the cab gets there, and then it's gonna drive you home until you can come back and get the car. But this is like a first thing, so like if I really thought about it more I can make it change.
Yeah, so that's great because I'd like to hold off. Let's talk a little bit more about that in the next segment. We're going to take another quick commercial break here, come back and wrap up our conversation with Bishop Curry about his idea and taking it forward as far as how to protect children who may accidentally be left in a car to save them. But it sounds like Bishop's also advising and helping others on on their other ideas. So with that, we're going to pick up this conversation as soon as we come back from this quick commercial break and continue on our conversation. We'll also talk a little bit about Kid Ladder, the program kind of tech camp that him and his brother do. So you want to hear about that also? Think about it. A fifth grader. So what's your excuse? What's your excuse for sitting on the couch? So stay tuned. When we come back, we're going to continue this conversation with Bishop Curry. You're listening to Killer Innovations on the BizTalk Radio Network. Welcome back to Killer Innovations. I'm your host, Mckinney. Before we hop back into this segment, need to do a shout out to a new sponsor, HP. Now, some of you are going to yell, "Oh, timeout, foul!" You were formerly the chief technology officer for HP, which is true. I retired at the end of 2011. But recently, HP has approached us and began sponsoring the show. Obviously, we have a long history with their products and technologies, but it's really driven by the support that HP has given me over the years for some of the charity work that I do. When I was at HP, we started Hacking Autism, which is a nonprofit that focuses on helping those that are on the autism spectrum, both with technology for those that typically are at the nonverbal end of the spectrum. Also, most recently, hackingautism.org has been focused on employment. We started this work when at HP as part of an HP program, and HP graciously allowed me to take it on. Through their sponsorship, if you've been a long-time listener to the show, you know that this is not a money maker. You know, look, 13 years of doing the show, and I've been funding this out of my own pocket. With sponsorships, both Zoom and with HP, we only take sponsorships for products and technologies we actually use, so it's not a money thing. And the money they provide as part of the funding frees up dollars that then goes to the charity organization. So it's actually a big help in funding and moving the charity work forward. And both HP and Zoom have been phenomenal sponsors. HP's come up with some more recent products. I'm now carrying an EliteBook 360. Love it. Ultra thin, phenomenal on the EliteBook line. If you're a business user of HP products, go talk to your CIO, ask them for the EliteBook 360. You will absolutely love it.
I don't know.
We also have been using Z2 workstations. We have an HP Slice right here that actually is what the Zoom sessions connect to. So we're completely outfitted here and love it. So go ahead and check it out. Go over to killerinnovations.com/HP, killerinnovations.com/HP. And you can see all of the products and technologies that we are using here in the studio that are provided by HP. Soon we will also have another announcement. We're building a second studio, so stay tuned. Not going to get into the details of that. We'll probably have more news about that in the fall, but we're pretty excited about it. We're in the phases of doing that. That would give us a lot more flexibility to support and do the shows from wherever we're at, whether we're here in Colorado, Florida, or anywhere around the globe. So you're definitely going to want to stay up with that. And also, HP's most recently has been focused on the work around security and securing those laptops, securing your printers, securing your personal and private information. So you are going to want to check that out. Security is becoming increasingly important for all of us, and so that is important. And so, therefore, hey, Bishop, let's pick up our conversation on where we were with Bishop Curry. So, hey, Bishop, let's talk more about what's next. You're in 5th grade. What is it? What is it you want to do with your future? What is it you want to become when you grow up? Which is kind of the standard question everybody wants to ask.
I'm an inventor and an actor.
An inventor and a doctor?
Actor.
Oh, actor. An actor. Oh, okay.
Maybe.
Why an actor?
I like movies.
You like movies. Well, during the commercial break, or actually before we even started the show, Bishop and I were talking about some of what he wants to do with his gear in order to get his own YouTube channel up and you got to be a little bit older though to have your YouTube channel.
Well, like you can be any age to have a YouTube channel.
And so what other inventions are you working on? You talked a little bit before we went to the commercial break and shared, for instance, what you were, a friend of yours who was talking about specifically drunk driving in the vehicle. So talk about some of the other ideas you're working on.
Well, I'm not really working on them. I just mentioned them.
Mm-hmm.
It was like the drunk driving idea was basically like this. It goes on Google Maps, except it's not like an app. You get this little tab, and it's like, and you can click it to your car, and wherever you drive, it'll locate you. And if you're like going to any like alcoholic places or like anywhere selling like really like things that could like change your mood or like what you do, it's going to like call a cab like when you arrive there and you're there for like longer than an hour, it's going to call a cab.
Mm-hmm. So what do your friends and teachers think about all of this? You've had some articles. You've been out there a little bit with your original invention. So what do you hear from your friends or from your teachers at school?
Well, they either want money or they want to work with me.
So, want to work with you? You mean like your friends want to actually become part of your company to do something with us?
Yeah, they also want me to help them with their ideas.
Well, that's not always a bad thing, right? If you're an innovator and you've proven how to do it, but you got to be a little careful because I guess it can eat up a lot of your time. You still got to go to school while you're also trying to do something with your idea.
Yeah, there's not a lot of free time.
And so, and what did I hear this correctly? You're being invited to give a TED Talk?
Oh yeah, like I'm gonna fly up to Maryland.
Oh, so it's like a TEDx talk somewhere up there, right? Up in
Hmm.
Maryland? Oh, okay. That's actually very exciting. Not many people get invited by TED to come do a TED Talk. So
Yeah.
you get your 18 minutes of fame. You've got to make sure you nail your talk pretty cleanly.
It depends about how big the stadium, like, is it like as big as the stadium, or is it like the smallest this room here?
Think of it as kind of with a TEDx. Most TEDx talks are along the lines of like a movie theater.
Ah, come on.
It's about that size. It's not like you're not going
I
into
mean, I could.
you're not going to go into Redskins Stadium and give a talk, you know. But it's more like a movie theater.
Yeah.
But that is exciting from the stand. Some of the other young innovators that have been on the show. A number of them have also given TED Talks, but I've never had a guest on as young as you. You do
Oh, so I'm the youngest.
you do qualify. I've had 15-year-olds, I've had 17-year-olds, I've had 18 years old. You qualify as the youngest guest on the show, talking about their innovation work.
Soon they're gonna get up to 5.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, if Isaiah's company gets very far, anybody can do it because it makes the patenting process way easier.
Yeah, it does. I mean, it is about getting the ideas and getting it out there, right? But it's as you've shared, right? You have to raise a little bit of money in order to make it real, to actually get something that could be turned into a product that you can actually ship it and sell it and support it.
Hmm.
So who else is helping you? Who's advising you through this whole process?
Like guiding me,
Yeah.
basically my dad, because he's like paying and like doing anything he can to help me get this out.
Well, parent support is important. In fact, that's probably one of the common themes across all of the young innovators we've had here on the radio show is the role of the parents, from the standpoint of the, mom, dad, etc. Um, so what are you doing in school these days? Does your school have something that allows you to continue to work on your ideas or work on your projects, or do you have, or like your 3D printers? Do you have those at your school?
Well, no, but they usually call me up in the office because that's what they did for my very first interview, because I was going to be on a newspaper, and like they called me up there, and I talked to her. I got to miss a lot of class, so that was great.
Hey, so Bishop, we're going to wrap it up here at this point in the show. I do appreciate you taking the time out of your day to be part of this and sharing this with us. I'll have contact information if you want to track some of the articles that have been written about Bishop and his project. So, Bishop, I thank you a lot for taking the time out of your schedule and for your parents for making you available.
It was my pleasure.
And I wish you the best of luck on your project.
You too.
Thank you. And with that, we'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. We've got the last and final segment, and we'll give you an update on some of the other things and one big announcement. We'll be right back after this break. Welcome back to Kill Innovations. We're going to wrap up today's show here in the 4th segment. We just wrapped up our first 3 segments with Bishop Curry, a 5th grader who has worked out an idea to actually help save babies who accidentally get forgotten in their car seats in their cars. inspired by a young girl, Fern, in Dallas, Texas, who was 6 months old and it accidentally was left in the car and died as a result of that. Bishop shared a whole bunch. I mean, it's kind of interesting to hear the innovation perspective from a fifth grader, right? And look, I can come up with 10,000 excuses. All of you can come up with 10,000 excuses of why you can't take an idea that you have and go do something with it. And here's a fifth grader, right, who, okay, getting help from his parents. His dad's giving him some coaching and guidance. Goes off and gets a Fund Me page sets up, asks for, $20,000, gets $40,000 as part of his Fund Me page, and is in the process of getting his patents and getting his prototype built and all those activities. So the question I have for all of us, me included, is, so what's our excuse? How many ideas do you have written down in your notebooks or on a back of a napkin, or you're thinking about it at night going, wow, I think I got a really great idea. What is preventing you from going off and doing something with it, right? So, I think that's the encouragement, whether it's last week's show where we listened to an 18-year-old in a medical device where him and his three buddies now are doing a skip year. They're not going right to college. They're going to take a year gap in between high school and college and see how far they can actually take this idea and turn it into a real product. And now you've listened to Bishop talk about his idea. Now, I can tell you, Bishop is the youngest guest I've ever had on this show. And it's been the only time I've ever been interviewing a fifth grader. Brought back all kinds of memories with my kids at the time. So hopefully you found that, both insightful, but also a little, encouraging of like, here's this kid who's doing something and, what excuse do we have? So one big announcement I want to share with you today is we are launching the Innovators community. So it's over at the innovators.community, the innovators.community. So if you've been following me for quite some time, you know that I've been teaching masterminds and I've also done coaching and mentoring. This, however, is a community of innovators who can support each other and provide expertise, whether that's ideation or prototyping, manufacturing, supply chain, sales, marketing, a wide variety of expertise coming together as part of the community. And it's really about the community supporting each other. Now, I'm very active. It's a Slack community that has been set up by the Innovators Network, which this show is part of, and Kim McNicholas' show is part of. And, we have a whole bunch of people who've been on the show, actually guests on the show, who are active and part of the community. We'll also be hosting exclusive webinars and online discussions and, pseudo kind of mastermind activities where one person is working on a very particular problem. The community comes together as kind of an online activity to help them through a problem. So why am I so big on this community? Well, one, look, I've done coaching and mentoring, and I can usually take on maybe one or two senior executives in a coaching and mentoring. And that's great, but you can only have an impact on a few people. I've done masterminds, I've hosted masterminds, and I'm kind of able to impact about 8 to 10 people. And if you've been a long-time listener of this show, you know that one of my big motivators is this is my way of pay it forward. How do I invest back into people the same way that Bob Davis, my original mentor, invested in my life that put me onto a track for the career that I've had? How do I help others? And that's where the community comes in. It allows for a high level of engagement, taking advantage of all the new tools, whether it's Zoom or Slack, and not be limited by 2 arms, 2 legs, and 24 hours a day. Plus, our community, the people that I interact with that are listeners and followers and people that I've now become friends over the 13 years of doing this show, are phenomenal experts. Whether that's Seth Taylor at Stoshin in Salt Lake City, or John Osborne, who was most recently head of innovation at Kroger Foods, who's now doing a new thing around innovation and IoT. Woody Woodward up in Michigan, he's been a leading innovator in the software consulting space for quite some time. So bringing all this expertise together into the community to really make that available to all of you, the listeners. So this is your opportunity. It isn't just about you listening to the show or listening to Kim McNicholas's show or periodically maybe dropping an email or commenting on a blog post or show notes. Here's your opportunity to have daily, regular kind of that, banging up against other innovators, getting your questions answered, you helping others because of your expertise and background, and really bring this community together. It's a Slack community. It's private. You need to sign up. There is a registration process for it. You can find out more over at theinnovators.community, theinnovators.community. That will be a landing page. It'll give you everything that is part of becoming a member of the community. You can check that out and join us. We'd love to have you part of it. Some of you have already snuck around and found this page and have joined. Thank you for being great detectives. But in this case, we're opening it up to the listeners of the podcast. We're not running ads yet. We're not opening it up to everybody. I want to give an opportunity for regular listeners of the podcast to go check that out. So again, theinnovators.community. So with that, we're going to wrap up today's show. Appreciate you taking the time. As I said, we're live in the studio today. We're going to be traveling to Florida with Caleb and my grandson and his health issues. You can go back and look for the show that is on orphan innovations if you want to hear more about what's going on in orphan drugs and the medical issues and situations that we're experiencing, but we've now found a community of people who also are experiencing it. So go check that out. And thank you very much for taking the time to be part of the show today. Thank you for listening. Love to hear your feedback. Also, any topic you would like to have covered in upcoming shows, drop them our way, phil@killinnovations.com. That's an email that comes directly to me. And with that, keep on innovating. Don't let the innovation antibodies keep you down. Get out there, kick some butt, and change the world. We'll talk to you next week.